The first project I will demonstrate is simply called Hello World. The purpose of this form is to allow the user to click on two different buttons to display the phrase Hello World in either English or Spanish. There also will be a button to allow the user to end the program. The first thing we need on this form is a label to display the phrase Hello World. Referring to the toolbox and finding the label icon, which is the big A, I'll simply click once and then drag and draw once the crosshairs develop on my form. I will now need three command buttons. So again, I'll select the command button and drag and draw it onto the form where I would like it for it to be. For the second command button, I repeat the process. You should be careful not to use copy and paste features at this point when trying to put multiple controls of the same type on the form, for it will create something called a control array, which is not what we want at this point. For the third command button, again, I repeat the process and place it onto the form. Of course, these can be moved and resized as necessary. You now have the user interface, which is what the user will see when the program is running. The first thing we need to do is to change some properties for these controls. I'll begin back with the label. The first property that you should always change is the name property. The name property is an internal name that only you, the programmer, are concerned with. The user does not see, nor does the user care about the name of the control. Making sure that label 1 has the focus, I now click into the Properties window, where I will see that the name of this label by default is label 1. I'm going to rename this label beginning with the lowercase letters LBL. We'll talk more later about the suggested prefix for controls, but at this point in time, LBL simply is a shortcut to mean label. Then I will give it a more meaningful name such as LBL message. Notice that the caption, that is what the user sees in the label itself, has not changed. It is still label 1. We'll change that very shortly. Let's rename the other command buttons as well. Clicking on command 1, going to the name property, I'm going to use the prefix CMD to stand for command. This is going to be my English button, so I'll call this CMD English. Notice the name of the property does not have any spaces in it. Spaces are not allowed in the name property. For the command 2, I will again click once on command 2, go to the Properties window, and now rename this command Spanish, for this is going to be my Spanish command button. Command 3 is going to be my exit button. So again, I will call this CMD exit. The names you give properties, or the names you give controls, should be meaningful of their purpose. As I stated earlier, these name properties, however, have no effect on what the user sees. So let's now change the caption property. A label has a caption property, and likewise, command buttons have caption properties. So I'll click on label 1 and go to the caption property. I want this caption to begin running blank, meaning there's nothing at all in the label's caption. So I simply will highlight label 1 and press the delete key. As you can see, it has been deleted from the Properties window, but also from the form itself. The command button's caption property for command 1, or rather CMD English now, is going to simply read English. You can type spaces, uppercase, lowercase, it makes no difference. Whatever you type is what the user is going to see. I'll change the caption for command 2 to read Spanish. Once again, this is actually my CMD Spanish button now. And my CMD exit button is going to read exit. So now these captions give the user some idea as to the functionality of these controls. Before ending this segment, there is one other little feature I would like to make or to change relative to the label. Making sure the label has a focus, going to the Properties window, and going to Border Style. You'll notice by default that labels do not have a border. I can, however, select one fixed single, and that will create a border around my label. This simply gives this label a little bit of definition and makes it a little bit easier to see. The next segment now will begin to write code to make this form actually do something.